we've been going already, but still worth the prayer. So Holy Spirit, thanks again for this more than half an hour we've already had together, and just the time to share about this. And Holy Spirit, just thank you for what's happening, for what you're doing in the lives of these artists that I get to work with. What an honor and a privilege, and what a joy to be able to do this. And I thank you so much for it. So just bless us as we go from here. All right, let me share this incredible drawing. Can everyone see this? Is it showing as I'm sharing the screen here? This drawing that Mary Beth did of your niece. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. And fabulous observation, but what I wanted to point out is how she has brought about the values. So this is shaded. This is all done with pen and ink, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this looks like pen and ink, and you explained this was for a graphics class where you were exploring different ways of mark making, right? Different ways of putting different types of marks to create dark and light values.
Yes.
So first of all, that's the one thing it's really fun because you've used so many different ways of doing it. We have cross hatching going on here. We have stipple happening here. We've got kind of a scumbly thing happening over here and along here. And she's even played around with different thickness. My goodness, this looks very painstakingly. You have so much patience seeing what you did with the eyes here. Oh, wow. But it fits, it goes with it. And okay, so this is, yeah.
How did she do the eyes? Can you zoom in on the eyes just temporarily?
Can I zoom? Will it let me?
Oh yeah, it's working. Oh, wow.
You see that? Okay, wow. Now it's being pixelated, so I'll go down again. Okay.
Very cool.
So, but, okay, so so the first thing to quick point out is how you do this is just a really good understanding of, because she only has two values here that she can work with. Her materials are allowing her to work with two values. She has white paper and black ink. And somehow with white paper and black ink, she has to create the illusion of gray. And she's definitely done that. And it's not too difficult to understand. It's not as easy to practice, but simply the closer your lines get, the darker they become. And you leave how much space in here, how much of this space is taken up by white and how much of it is taken up by black, and which will create gray. Okay, so that's sort of how we go about with that. But the other thing I want to point out, let me zoom back in again, is the direction of the line that we use. And she's very particular about the direction of her line and the way it goes, and because she's following the form. And I think I briefly showed you guys, this is called cross contour lines. This is so clever, Mary Beth. You go from straight line and suddenly you switch to these, it's not stipple, but they're dotted lines. But even these dotted lines following the two directions, I don't know if you guys can get the sense, the way she's cleverly done this, the dotted lines go, it creates this direction, but it also creates this direction. And those are the two different directions that follow the form of this cheek here. And she's done it here. And especially we can see this on the hands, and how she's done the fingers in the hands, how they follow the form of the fingers, and ends up capturing form there. It's a little more obvious in hair that we would do that, but we often don't think about necessarily doing that on a flat surface like the skin. Okay, so it's very intentional, the angle of these lines and the angle of these lines and these, okay, and then these going in that direction and all that sort of stuff. So I want to point that out. If I let me show that with another drawing on this rabbit, which, can you guys see the rabbit now? In the shading of the rabbit, he's doing the exact same thing. Okay, let me zoom in on this rabbit here. So Jean Franks is doing the same sort of direction. And it's not just the fur, but the direction he follows the form of the animal, or he follows the edge of the contour of the form. That's what I'm trying to say. So he follows the contour of the form with the direction of your line. And this is what I mean. Line matters. And this is sort of like when I said earlier to Mary Beth, each line in itself, and this is to all of you guys, is an end in itself. Not, it's a means to an end. What I mean is the lines are there for the purpose of capturing the value, but each line in itself should also stand on its own as something of worth, as something of intentional. And the line itself looks beautiful, okay? And we can see it, like, let me explain this, maybe I can explain it with this little scribble line right here. This little scribble line, the purpose of it is to tell us about the surface that this rabbit is sitting on, okay? But the line itself is attractive because of what is happening with it. The value changing, the loose, scribbly feel of it, how these curves keep changing in height, okay? And then this one here, this line again. So the line itself is attractive. We like it. It's a captivating or whatever. It feels good, okay? Because it's thin, it's all kind of dotted, and then it flows and it moves and it gets thicker, and it has this abrupt, it comes to its stop, and then it swooshes around there, okay? So that's what I mean. It's an end in itself. The line is attractive.
I have a question on his ear that's coming down.
This one, yep.
Yeah, so he has all the hairs kind of going in the right line, but then all of a sudden he scribbles over the top. What's that for? What's that communicating?
That's really a good question, because someone else may look at that and say, "Oh, that just bothers me." I think a lot of this in his work, he stays very loose, and a loose, scribbly line just expresses life and movement.
That's what I was thinking. The movement of his floppy ears, maybe.
It makes see, when we view this, we're not just using our eyes. We're using our eyes and our mind, and so our brain is telling us that, oh, this is dark, and so this is a leg, that's an edge, that's it's a lop, grab it. But our emotions and our heart and soul, without us even knowing, are participating as well, and we're feeling things from this. And a loose line that has a bit of a scribbly sort of feel to it, like look at this one as well, in his hind leg here. You can see it again in his hind leg. It just feels like it's alive. It feels like it's moving.
Well, I wonder too, because it echoes that the shape on his hind leg, that one in his ear. I wonder if it's a unifying thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that would have totally make sense. Totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Because your lines, yeah, exactly. They do have to feel. Now, could you have gotten away with this? I think you might have. And one person's going to like it, another person's not going to. Some people's hearts are speaking more than their heads, the viewer, your audience. And that's where you can't escape. And you have to let your own self come into it. So if all of us did this rabbit and did this drawing, which I'm not going to make us do, but let's say if we all did this, each of us in the end, our drawings would still be different. And that would be good, and we would want that to happen. Some of us would like this scribbly, and some of us would be like, it's just, I don't like that. And so we take what we like and we leave out the rest. So, all right. But now just a little bit of guidance in how do we know the direction of the lines. So let me go to that. And that's what I wanted to show you. Oh, by the way, also, let me just quick show you a few things. So with shading, Shading is making marks, making different types of marks. And this goes along with simply what I was explaining, is making our lines matter as we shade. All sorts of different tools that we have here. First of all, I have all my different grades of pencils. You know, my 3B, there's an H. Here's an 8B. This is just a graphite stick. I could grab charcoal pencils here. Here's another type of pencils, really, you know, kind of this thick sort of thing. Do I have any of my Yeah. Charcoal. This is a blending stomp. There's just so many different tools out there for drawing, and you kind of explore them and choose what you like and what you don't like. I was talking earlier about this type of mechanical pencil. There's this type here, and you actually, they come with a special sharpener, and you put that in there, and then you stick it in there, and it goes round and round. And so these are, you can buy something like that. This might be something for someone who's a little more technical, very, you know, tight and accurate with their drawing. And I didn't finish sharpening that, you know, and so that's very different. You guys may already know this, but why in the world do we have this sharpening, or sorry, the sandpaper thing? And this is simply for the purpose of, we don't always, when we shade, want a sharp point. We sometimes want a soft, blunt sort of thing. So if we only depend on this type of sharpener, and everything we do, you know, brings us to this super sharp point, that limits us. So especially with your soft, this is an HB. Let me switch to what I got, my 3B. This is simply for the purpose of creating a point that is softer. I can create different, you know, I can round it out. I can make it very flat on one end like that. Now I can turn that and sort of show. Yeah, there you go. So you can see how it's very flat on one end, and that's going to make a particular type of line, right? So when I'm shading, and it just makes it softer, not such a harsh point. But then it also, you know, so you might like something like that, where your line, it allows me to create a line that changes as I move through the line. I'm spinning my pencil, and it makes a much more attractive sort of line. You know, so anyway, so those are things you explore, right? As you're working with. And I just wanted to show you that might be a bit of review. That's some things you guys knew about. I don't use these too often, but there are, you know, they always make these value finders. If you're getting very extremely accurate, yeah, for me, this sort of becomes a little bit too tight. But they are handy, especially when you're learning at the beginning. So, and every once in a while, I might grab this and use it. Okay. The reason why they have these circles, by the way, is to block out all the different values around it, because black or a dark gray, let's say, will look darker if it's against white, and it will look lighter if it's against another gray. By the way, so while I was waiting for you guys, I was just practicing a value scale. So this is what I'm talking about. Trying to create this soft, gradual change. And the challenge of this is, can you create something where every single part, the gray, is continually changing? And that's always a challenge, to be able to bring that out. But let's take a look at cross contour lines. So I'm going to use my paper here. And how do we know what direction, when we're shading, how do we know what direction to do our line in? Let me find an HB pencil here. Here we go, an HB pencil. As we draw, we want to be able to think about the basic forms. So I don't know if I did this with you guys. The basic forms are sort of the primary forms. Everything really can be broken down to these different forms. Just like every color can be broken down into the 3 primary colors, we can do the same with form. Cylinder, sphere, cube, or rectangular prism, but cube. And this is something you might, if this is new to you, you might want to copy this. If this is not new, don't waste your time. You can work on something else while I'm going over this. Okay. The last one, sorry, cone. The last one is the cone. Now there's arguments. Some people include a pyramid in it, but really a pyramid is sort of just a combination of the cube and this, okay? But it would be like that. So you can see, but so what happens here is the same thing that happens here. So I showed you a little bit of this before, and we can shade this, but I'm not going to talk about shading right now. I'm not going to shade these to show you. What I want to do is to explain cross-contour lines. Cross-contour lines are the lines that go through the form following the direction of the plane, if that makes sense. If you guys, for those who don't understand the term plane, plane is simply a flat surface, okay? This has 3 planes. This one, and this one. Well, there's 3 more on the other side, right? There's obviously 6 planes on a cube. However, a cylinder has only 3 planes. There's a plane at the top, plane underneath here, and another plane going around it. And that's 1 plane. A sphere has 1 plane only, as does a cone. Has only 1, well, a cone, sorry. Cone will have another plane on the bottom, okay? Now the cylinder, when I first mentioned that, that's as if the ends are solid. If it's hollow cylinder, then it's simply made of 2 planes, 1 here and 1 on the inside, okay? When we shade, and also when we paint, our pencil stroke or a brush stroke, if we, as much as possible, again, it's a rule that can be broken, but if we try to, get in the practice of having the direction of those follow the plane, it will help increase the sense of form. It'll make it look even more 3-dimensional. As we could see, and as I was pointing out in Mary Beth's drawing of the girls. So what are the directions? Oh, that's right. Let me back up and explain what I mean about how everything is the basic form. So we're going to take a look at her drawing again and to explain what I mean about this. So first of all, the head itself basically is an adaptation or a variation or a distortion of a sphere, right? It's like an egg shape, okay? The human head. But now we also want to break that down. We don't just stop there. We start to look at all the other parts. The cheeks, when we're thinking about the cheeks and drawing the cheeks, we want to have in our mind the idea, well, they're kind of spherical as well. So is the forehead is sort of spherical. This part of the nose, however, is much more cylindrical. But here, once again, is more spherical, spherical. Some of them are much more complex. Some are very obvious. The fingers, obviously, are cylindrical, okay? The lips, cylindrical, but there is also, depending on how thick the lips are, it becomes almost a bit of sphericalness. How's that for a word? The chin again, and you can see as Mary Beth shaded the chin, whether she was thinking about it or not, she has followed the same idea of what happens in a sphere, okay? I'm not gonna bother trying to break down an ear because some things are just so complex. And that's why something like that, trying to shade an ear out of your imagination is a real challenge, right? Of course, the arms, again, would be there. Now, the nose, however, is not just a cylinder. It's actually a bit of a combination of a cylinder and the cone, because it's wider here and it narrows down. Okay, so that gets a little more complex. Even the fingers themselves or the arms are not perfectly cylindrical. They narrow down a little bit. Okay, so, but all of those things we keep in mind as we're working on this. So if we can just sort of have this in mind, what direction are the planes? If I take this cylinder, well, maybe it's not, I didn't say obviously, but maybe it's not obvious. So that's why we actually do this. What we do is we imagine a grid, that the plane was made from a grid, and we simply draw the grid. And in this case, the two directions, the grid would follow these two directions. So this gives us a hint when we're painting or drawing anything that, like a finger, or sorry, shading or painting something like a finger, tree trunk, a wheel even. If we practice these two directions with our pencil stroke or brush stroke, it will help. Okay, you don't have to stick with that. Now I'm making this one as if it's hollow. So on the inside, it goes like that. Okay. If it's solid, of course, let's do a quick solid one. And yeah, if it's solid, the side hasn't changed. The side looks different, but the top changes. Okay, so we can do this sort of differently. We can go in these sort of directions. Okay, that didn't really work. I don't like that. The reason I don't like it is because I wasn't thinking about perspective. Oh, I forgot to show this eraser, by the way. You can get these fine erasers. I'm going to take the time to erase this quick a minute. I'm pressing too hard here. Yeah. Yeah, I think that feels better to me. Okay, so, but there's a grid on top here. A sphere is, there's different ways that you can do it. I tend to follow just like a globe. So we're basically going in this direction, and then we're also going in this direction here. Okay, and so if we follow those brush strokes, that's going to work. Sometimes, let me just show you, sometimes you actually might, because you have a highlight, you can actually move that around on a sphere. Okay, that's kind of the fun thing with the sphere. You can actually do it like that, and you can even, have your different going that way. So a sphere has a little bit more, it's a little more free in how you can go, but you definitely want to, you don't want to do this. This will really show the difference here. If I paint this or shade this, like this already feels spherical. It used to be a circle. Now it automatically feels like a sphere, and I haven't even shaded. I haven't even put any shadow yet. But if I do this, watch this. If I do this, it does not feel spherical at all. It feels very flat. Okay, so you can see the power of paying attention to your stroke. Okay, so if I shade with my direction, my pencil strokes going in this direction, it's going to increase the feel of the three-dimensionality. And if I shade with my straight lines on a sphere, I'm actually kind of working against myself. Okay, this always just feels flat, which is why when we do a cube, we stick with straight lines. Okay, now to make it feel like there's some perspective going away from us, we want to make sure our brush stroke follows that direction. Okay, I'll show you again. If we don't think about perspective as we're doing that, I can also kill it by doing this. You know, so if I just think, oh, straight lines, you know, and then like this does not feel near as three-dimensional as this one does. Okay. Same thing. On a cone. Shoot, I'm starting to go a little fast here because it's taking so long. Okay, same thing on a cone. I've had so many students, they go to shade a cone and they do this. And it doesn't work. I suppose it has a little bit of it, but not near as much as if I were to shade this and I follow my contour lines. Okay, so when we shade, we often go in more than one direction. So I would go in that direction, one direction. It just will simply add a little bit more of life if I have a bit of a hatching sort of feel. One direction might be good enough, but I like the looseness of a second direction as well. And sometimes you can go in 6 or 8 different directions. Okay. So this, of course, is going to be, you know, so we have the combination, and then of the cube and the cone. And so what you end up having to do with something like a hand or a finger is, you know, so let's say we have a finger and it's sort of coming at us. There's a fingernail. That was a bit much. And we're going to shade that, okay? We sort of imagine, if we can, a grid on this. So I'm not going to shade, I'm just going to draw the grid. That's supposed to be a fingernail there, okay? And you'll see, this is going to remind you of Mary Beth's drawing. So, and Mary Beth, I don't know if they had taught you this or you just did this naturally, whatever, but it totally worked.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was like probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. So chances are that, you know, so anyway, but this, we sort of get this idea of, I haven't even shaded it, but it helps right away feel three-dimensional. So whatever your drawing is, we use this as a guide. You don't always have to, and sometimes you have to break away from this, okay? Sometimes it's just simply necessary that it's just not going to work, and you make those decisions. But this gives you still something to think about and to be aware, okay? So again, let's just take that. Now with that in mind, let's take a look at the rabbit again, the final one of the rabbit. Zoom in on him a little bit, and oops, that's way too much, and get an idea of where, you know, we can see, again, it's not exactly all the time, because sometimes we do something called scumbling. You know, we're going to come up with different sorts of mark making, and sometimes we put in the scribble, okay? But you can still see the way, you know, like even in this back leg, what's happening, how that scribble, the direction of this scribble, overall direction.
Yeah, I really see it above and to the left of his eye.
Right here. Yep, exactly. That's a really good, yeah. Yeah, here's where, you know, a place where you can see it, obviously. Okay. Yeah, and he's starting that right away. So that all that is to tell you and to remind you to pay attention to those sort of things, okay, as you're doing that. So so what do we have? We have 9:30 here already. So I think maybe we'll leave it at that, if that's okay with you guys. You all have that for those who want to practice this and feel it'd be a good thing. It doesn't have to be from this book. It's just one that has worked well for me, and I've had a lot of students have success in drawing something that they never believed they would have been able to, and it helps loosen up their shading. Because one of the things I always try to get away from is try to get people to not do this, okay? This is sort of what ends up happening, and they do this, and then they get the finger in there, and then they do this, and then, and that's how they shade, okay? So it has a little bit, and it does sort of work, but it's very limited. And then especially if you start, you're trying to shade a nose or something like that, and you're just doing this again, and you're just getting your finger in there and you're smudging, it doesn't work anymore, okay? And it's just very, very limiting. So the art of working from Gene Franks, he would just be one of many, but working from another artist just helps give us a little bit more guidance, okay, before we, if you feel that you're sort of beyond that, try working from a drawing, a black and white drawing. So I just go step by step. I'd start with we start with line drawing, more almost like a cartoon. Then we go to a more realistic drawing. Then you can go to a black and white photo. Then you can go to a colored photo. And then eventually going to work from life, okay? And that's what, life drawing classes. Life drawing classes are fantastic, right? In that, yeah, you're always, anyway, I'm just starting to babble now. Anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself. I'm starting to say everything I said already. Oh, we got some great background music going on here. I don't know if you guys can hear the background music that my boys are playing.